Morning everybody, welcome to Tuesday's Indycar, and yes, it is Tuesday today, Tuesday the 4th of September. And in today's news we discover that the Tories are still on course to carry on with Brexit regardless of whatever happens on the 29th of March. So we now know for certain that there's no chance that Brexit can be stopped. The only thing that might derail it would be another, possibly another general election sometime in the near future. But as somebody said on the BBC today, there's no way of knowing what will happen in the next 3 months in British politics. You'd need to have a crystal ball. It's a crapshoot one way or the other, what might happen and what won't. What's definitely not going to happen is it's not going to be a stable time for the UK, and it's not going to be a safe time to be in Scotland or anywhere else in the UK for that matter. More evidence of this is turning up every day in polls being conducted by newspapers, and not necessarily the national newspaper. Today we've had the Press and Journal publishing an online poll which asks the question about whether you would support an independence referendum regardless of whether there was Brexit or not. And it's coming back at over 80% support for independence regardless of whether Brexit happens or not. Only 16% of people thought that Brexit was an important factor in their choice about whether to support independence. And I think that's the most telling thing of all. That people no longer care whether Brexit happens or not. They're simply sick of all the uncertainty, they're sick of being ruled from abroad, and they just want to have their own country back, and they want some normality for a change. So it seems that there's not very much going on in the news today. Andrea Leadsom, the leader of the House of Commons, was interviewed by the BBC this morning and pressed on whether or not she thought that the Chequers agreement was dead in the water, or whether it was in any way a sellout, or in some way it just wasn't workable. But she claims that it's the only pragmatic choice, and she may well be right. In fact, for the Tories at least, that it is their only pragmatic choice. The problem is it a realistic choice, and will the European Union go along with any of it? The European Union has said time and time again that they have their own red lines that they will not cross. And the game of brinkmanship that the UK thinks that it's playing with Europe is a bit of a misnomer. It's not brinkmanship at all. The European Union doesn't need to do anything, and it doesn't need to give any ground at all, because it is 27 nations strong and will easily weather losing the UK. The same cannot be said for the United Kingdom, which is going to lose 40% of its ability to trade with its near neighbours, and suddenly find that importing from the European Union becomes about 25 to 30% more expensive than it was before, having a huge effect on the supply chain of British goods, which rely heavily on components coming in from Europe. So in summary, the United Kingdom is still heading for the Brexit cliff. It's really just a question of when it goes over the edge, and whether or not the Scottish people will be given the chance to vote on an alternative to that before it's too late. There are still two schools of thought. One that says that we should vote before the 29th of March, of which I am a member of that particular group, and the other group which thinks we should wait until Brexit happens and people start to suffer from it first of all before we try to vote on it. My own opinion is that we should go for the former, because I believe the polls are beginning to show now that we are leading in the battle for independence. The poll published in the National this week showed a clear 52.4% of Scots in favour of independence. That's when you remove the don't knows. The don't knows make up 10% of the population. Now, if we sway just 10% of the population, then we're going to have 62.4%, and that's before we've included any Europeans or any under 18s. So you can imagine what will happen when we start to include European citizens living here and the under 18s, who are about 75% of them in favour of independence. So we've got a long way to go, but not as far as people might think. And I believe that by October this year, by the end of this month in fact, we will be, I think, in a position to call a referendum. But it needs to be done quickly, and it has to be well before Brexit happens. The European Union has now said that it will decide on the deal that Britain gets, not on the 29th of March, but 2 weeks beforehand. It will make its final decision. Now, 2 weeks before Brexit means that we have to call a referendum in October. Otherwise, we will miss that deadline, and our vote to become independent will not precede Brexit, which means that we will have to Brexit with the rest of the UK and suffer the consequences before we can vote to become independent. Now, is that a good idea? I don't think so, and I don't think so for a number of reasons, but the main reason is that once Britain Brexits, all the safety underpinnings of the Scottish Parliament will be removed. The foundations which hold it in place legally will be removed. And at that point, I believe that the UK will call some kind of emergency situation nationally and take over control of all the devolved assemblies directly. Nothing else makes any sense, because why else would Mr. Mundell be gathering thousands of new members of staff in a completely new civil service in a new building in Edinburgh? Were he not thinking of centralising control at very short notice? The writing is on the wall, the clues are all there, people just need to join the dots and think about it. But the fact of the matter is, with the Press and Journal showing 80% of Scots in favour of independence regardless of Brexit, okay, that's an online poll and they're notoriously unreliable, but the so-called respectable poll showing 52.4% in favour of independence. It's the highest level of independence support that there has ever been in Scotland. So it's still rising, and there are still two groups of people who haven't been included in the polling. And I think once they're added in, you're looking at 55 or more % in favour, at which point we really need to get on with it and call the referendum. We've got everything to win now and almost nothing to lose by doing this, because if we don't go for this, we risk losing the entire country and any chance of a referendum ever again, because the Tories will centralise power as soon as Brexit happens, because it will be an emergency, because the country will be in turmoil, and because they will need to put in place special measures. So basically, as I said today, the polls are saying that independence is winning, and it's leading at the moment by 2.4% over the opposition. It's 2.4%, doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at the figures, we're 52.4%, the opposition 47.8%. Now that's quite a big gap. When it starts to open out like that and we start to gain more support, you'll see it climbing much more rapidly. I anticipate by the end of this month we'll be nearing 60% for independence, at which point I sincerely hope that our leaders decide to call a snap referendum. And by snap I mean really quick, not 4 months quick, maybe 4 weeks quick or 6 weeks quick. But it has to be fast before the British state has a chance to do any more of its dirty tricks. They're already trying them, they're already smearing people, they're already undermining and limiting the amount of social media access people have. That will continue. So get out there and talk to your friends, convince them, tell them the facts, and remember that Brexit is now the biggest risk to Scotland's economy and to people's jobs and homes that there's ever been. And independence is now the safe option. It's the safe, steady option for all of us. It takes us out of this madness once and for all and sets us apart, where we can rule our own lives and decide our own course of action all the time without any interference from anybody in London ever again. No more Tory rule. Pardon me. No more sleaze, no more scandals, no more child abuse being swept under the carpet, no more misogyny, no more abuse of women and young people in the employment of MPs in Westminster. That will all be swept away, and we will have a clean, clear, transparent democracy with the most modern technological voting system on the planet. and all that is just waiting for us to say yes to. And I don't know why we're waiting. I'll see you later. Bye for now.